pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, Michelle.
Jeremy McCarg,
Here.
Bernie Paprad.
Here.
Roseanne Bozak.
Here.
Travis Dunlap,
Present.
Aaron Addick,
Here.
Nick Loving and Nicole Migalorni are absent.
Approval of minutes, September 12, 2022. If everybody's had a chance to review them, if anybody wants to wait, would understand that. A motion, do I have a second?
I didn't know if there was a motion to.
No, a motion to approve, sorry.
I'll second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? Roll call, Michelle.
Bernie Paprad,
Yes.
Roseanne Bozak,
Yes.
Travis Dunlap,
Yes.
Aaron Addick,
Yes.
Jeremy McCarg.
Yes. Communication bills and expenditures, town code updates, Michelle, did that?
It was just, Corinne sent an email notifying that the building code to reflect changes made according to the ordinance 313-2022 flood damage prevention was effective, September 29th.
Gotcha. For the officers, committee and staff, anything?
No, sir.
Roseanne?
Nope.
Travis? Sorry. I'm gonna jump past old business real quick and jump to new business number 2, Cleveland Cliffs Burns Harbor excavation permit.
My name is Chuck Anderson. I'm with DLZ and I'm here representing Cleveland Cliffs for an excavation permit application. Back in the 1970s, there was an upset condition that occurred at Coke Battery and Coke Chemical area. There was some piping, some demolition debris and some waste materials placed in what were 2 former tar and pounding areas close to the Deerfield storage facility at this location. And that material in 2002 went through a voluntary cleanup action. The material was removed. There was sampling and analysis performed on soil and groundwater. Those results were submitted to the US EPA and IDEM. They approved a closure plan at that time, which included capping 3 separate areas at the location where the former tar impoundments were. There was 1 tar impoundment in area A, 1 tar impoundment in area B. Those 2 areas received a high-density polyethylene liner and a geosynthetic clay cap over those, as well as then a soil cap above that. Area C was designated as lower concentrations. All the material was removed in that area. So that was covered with a soil cap. So in 2018, during the construction of the 2nd phase cell for the Deerfield storage facility, we were excavating in this area to construct a new mixing pad, an asphalt paved pad where materials are brought and mixed before staging in the landfill. And during excavation in this area, we encountered additional debris from that 1970s upset condition. So that material was excavated and removed. Additional soil and groundwater samples were taken. The analysis was again submitted to the US EPA and IDEM. A corrective action plan was developed and approved by both IDEM and the EPA, which would extend the soil cap in area C to include the area that was excavated and removed in 2018 as part of the construction of the mixing pad for the landfill. So the excavation at that time was part of the excavation permit that was obtained for the construction of the phase 2 site. This is a blow up of that area. And basically, there is no excavation involved in this project. We're actually placing a soil cap over the top of the area designated here in yellow. So we're going to raise the contours approximately 2 foot almost over that entire area. with the exception of down in this corner, we actually get almost close to 5-foot material being added. But this is really a soil cover that's being added to raise the elevations, to make sure this area is completely covered and does not get disturbed by normal operational activities that go on in that area. So again, this plan is already approved by EPA and IRB. You have a set of documents there which include some of these figures, maybe not with the color on them, but so this is an example cross-section C. It's on drawing C 5.3, which shows the typical change in grade that's going to occur over this area. It's basically 2 foot of fill material. And then again, the largest depth of material will be just in this corner adjacent to the mixing pad where there'll be almost 5 feet of material built. There is going to be a 6 foot tall retaining wall built along the side of the mixing pad to keep the material separated from the cap area with the mixing pad. So when it's all done, the entire area that's getting capped and then the surrounding areas adjacent where there's any truck traffic and construction activities going on, that entire area will be seeded, hydro-seeded and covered with mulch, and then we'll establish a grass area. So it will match all of the former investigative areas that have been closed. That field right now is just a grass field. They don't allow any trees or anything to grow to disturb the cap. It's just a grass area that is mowed routinely throughout the year. So that's the extent of the project here that we're looking to have this set for public hearing if possible in next month's meeting. Nothing has happened on the project in the field to date, other than getting the plans developed and approved by the regulatory agencies.
Any other questions, discussion?
I guess I have a question with regards to the adjoining property owners within 300 feet. I'll have to just double check town code, state code. But in my own practice, when I do this and I have to notify property owners, it's not just the parcel that you own, you have to go past, because a lot of these on this list are Cleveland Cliffs.
Correct.
So I guess I just, to make sure that we're going 300 feet beyond what Cleveland Cliffs owns. So again, I have to look at that and compare. And I don't see parcel numbers on here to get a better idea. Because I think you probably would have to notify some property owners south of 12.
Yeah, I can certainly double check that as well and submit a revised list to make sure.
Yeah, and it may be right, but I'm just saying I don't think you can use your own property as within the 300 feet.
Sure, okay.
If we're going on from there, do we have to do anything about all the railroads and everything right out in front? I don't see anything. We've made them do the. And more likely, they're not gonna respond back to you.
Yeah, I mean, if they're listed as the owner.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to check, because I know NIPSCO is on there.
Yeah.
No, this goes on there. I looked at their products is on the state of Indiana, so that should cover the highway. 2 highways, 149 and 12.
Got the commissioners, I'm not sure what the county.
Yeah, so there are tracks in between 2 sections of property there that I'll look into, because like you say, Praxair is right there, NIPSCO is right there. So I'm offhand, I'm just not sure the property for the railroad lines, if that's CN or who.
South Shore.
South Shore.
Yeah, I think so. At least one of them.
Yeah.
How about anything in the port? Your west fence faces stuff going in on the port side in there, right?
Correct.
So there's companies right along through there. If you go out to West Gate, there's undoubtedly.
There's a Porter County GIS that gives you step by step. I can send that to you and help you do that.
Okay. Thanks.
Mhm.
I'll go through and take a look and like Sal submit a revised list. And see who we might want to add or need to add to that notification.
And then looking at looking at, you have a copy of the most recent deed for the site that has a legal
I
description.
could submit it. We've submitted it previously for other excavation permit applications. It
But I think
hasn't
this
changed.
would be, I'm just looking again, and it's on town code, you can pull up
Mhm.
the 15/13/26 that's referenced right above your signature, and you can see what has to be submitted. The application has to have the following information. It's got this laundry list of 14 different things. So yeah, I think that I just need to make sure that all that's included.
Okay, I will go through that list as well and submit any additional documentation that's required.
Yeah, no affected areas to A, B, or C as far as excavation, just the cap on.
Correct. Yeah, there are no excavation activities other than the construction probably of the retaining wall along the mixing pad. There will be probably a little recessed area where the bottom course of stone is going. They're large concrete blocks that they're making it out of, and then there'll be a second row on top of that. So that would be the only area that might get disturbed.
300 feet, though, that'd whack out a lot of them, because 300 feet is not very far. There's nothing in force within 300 feet. Maybe it'll be close.
Close, but I'll take a look.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather send one extra letter that didn't need to
Sure.
be sent
Yeah.
and make sure that we comply with everything, even if it's just precautionary.
We might be able to look through some old documents of who they sent it to for the public hearing for the previous ones.
Right.
Yeah, this just says the names and mailing addresses of all the adjoining landowners. And so maybe, you can't really be an adjoining landowner to yourself.
Anyone have anything else?
We're ready to set a public hearing.
Yeah. I think obviously the only contingency would probably be just making sure that we notify everybody properly, so we don't have any hiccups at the public hearing, and it won't delay you any.
Right.
But
We don't want to wait till we have all the proper stuff in place before we set it, before we know what we're doing. You just said that there was stuff missing from what we're supposed to have.
Why, I mean, I think the biggest thing is, the deed.
Which, and I can go back in other files and get that out from before.
And
I appreciate that, but that's their.
I can track that down too from that and bring it in tomorrow.
You've got the license, engineering drawing, the purpose, the plan control, and the access. What provisions will be made to control the flowing and spilling of materials upon the properties of others? What routes will be used for hauling materials to or from the site?
Okay, so some of those are spelled out in the stormwater pollution.
Right, no, we're just
plan.
cross
Just kinda,
referencing.
right.
He has the code in front of him, I don't, so I was double checking.
Yeah.
And all materials that being obtained from on site. We're not bringing anything in from off site.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is, I don't see anything where you actually have to. Know this through. Oh, here it is, after reviewing the plan commission, self the matter for public hearing. addition will give published posted notice of the hearing in the manner required by law. Shall send notice to all adjacent property owners by certified mail return receipt requested at applicant's expense in 10 days prior. So I think there's certainly time for them to get the accurate list of adjoining property owners and have those sent out 10 days before the November 7th. Right, that they would basically be sending that out, I think, whatever that Friday is, the 28th, maybe. I think we'll find this at the public hearing. And if if he doesn't go, we'll till December.
Sure.
There's no other discussion, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make that motion, unless you want to make it.
I'll second. Motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, Michelle.
Travis Dunlap,
Yes.
Aaron Addick,
Yes.
Bernie Poprod,
Yeah.
Roseanne Bozak,
Yes.
Jeremy McCark.
Yes.
Thanks, sir. Thank you very much. Did anybody remind him that he'd be here?
Oh, we leave the fire
We're gonna do that at the end
department.
of this, but our November 7th meeting due to the elections will be at the fire department,
Okay.
so
Okay, great.
that'll reduce any confusion. You sitting there like, wow.
You're welcome.
Okay. So jumping back up to old business would be accessory building corrections / fences. So one of the things was that we had spoke about, if I can find it, is the building permit. Did everybody get a chance to look at that? Okay, that. So on the front page, bottom left corner, it does say something where it says, I as applicant for this permit assume the responsibility to be aware of and to comply with all applicable town, state, and federal ordinances, codes and statutes, land covenants, easements, and restrictions, right on our permit. So it does reference the easements that they assume the responsibility. So whether or not anyone thinks that we need to add anything else to the building permit, or if that's sufficient there, and then I guess the thing is while it says it on our permit, there's nothing that I have located in our town code that actually backs that up.
But it's referenced in the state code, right? That's what state code is, that's what we're saying in the permit to reference town code, state code. And if it's referenced in state code, would we need to also have it in town code if state code has it?
You're right in that aspect. If it is in state code, then I would assume that, you know, our putting it into our town code would just be a redundancy, but I think it's, as far as our building permit, what it's saying is that the applicant assumes the responsibility to be aware with the town code, the state code, the federal ordinances, codes and statutes, land covenants and easements, but I guess what governs the easements? I mean, like, maybe we need to look more before we would try to put it in the town code, then see if it's actually referenced in state code. And if it already addresses it in state code, then this is really kind of a non-issue if that's the point.
I mean, then you're assuming they're reading state code too. I don't think it's wrong for us to update town code.
Okay.
It's not wrong if we don't necessarily have it. At some point in time, you've got to rely on, you know, the people or the boards to read what they're signing and understand the full impact of it. So,
I just worry that we'll run into an issue putting in town code where then it will cancel out something else and open up the door to something, or, you know.
So the one thing I would say though is if you go to our town code, it's section, I'll read it. So it's section 4-1-6 under A, and it's for application for permits. in there, this is for applying for a building permit / improvement location permit. It says it shall be issued for the foregoing purposes unless the application for a permit is. Okay, it shall not be issued unless the application for a permit is accompanied by a site plan, which shall include a plat or sketch of the proposed location showing lot boundaries, building lines, and setbacks. Nowhere in there does it say that it has to require easements to be in that building permit. So like, it doesn't give the building commissioner the opportunity to be able to see whether or not a proposed structure would be on an easement, because our town code doesn't require. Like, just even to obtain a permit doesn't require it to be there. Now, if you go with if you actually come in with your plat, like it's gonna have, like mine has it on there, I mean, I can't speak for all of them, I would assume that the plat should have a recorded easement.
Well, I mean, if there's an easement within the plat, yeah,
Right.
it should be on.
But the code also says, this code says a plat or sketch. So that's where I get like, I mean, what defines a sketch? I mean,
I don't think older homes actually have a detailed plat like that.
well, it's probably very hard to locate.
But if you are going to add, say, a pole barn on an older parcel that maybe doesn't have that, then that's why you need to hire professional surveyor, engineer, somebody to prepare one. And then those people with that expertise go down to the county recorder's office and pull the records and see, where's the utility lines that, there might be easements or drainage easements.
So I guess to me, I don't know how everybody else feels, that like I can look at it both ways. But ultimately, I kind of defer to our attorney at this point. I mean, if you think that easements need to be specifically listed in our code, I would kind of defer to you. I mean, because potentially you might be the one that's litigating, trying to defend us in
I
court.
don't think it hurts. I think it's kind of like the belt and suspenders approach where, it's on the form. If you want to send me where you're seeing in town, if it's referenced in town code, but if it's on the form and it's in code, then anybody who comes before, this or other boards can't say I did that.
Right,
I mean, they can, but their argument gets watered down.
right.
That, yeah, you did.
The reasonable person should know.
Yeah, you can't put your pool or your deck or your storage shed over this easement, or if you do, we can require you to remove it, or we can tear it down if we need to work in the easement or some other utility or, drainage or whatever the issue is. You can't put improvement in. It's like the big, where this all came from was fences.
Right.
You want them to be able to put.
You want to be able to use a fence on your entirety of your property, but at the same time know that you might have to take that thing down if NIPSCO needs to come through or whoever.
I think they're different in the fact that those are easier to take down and put back up than say a pool or a deck or a shed.
Right.
Or a big pole barn.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think it's really about putting everybody on notice that, yeah, you exactly what you said, you can do these things or, with permission. Of either the board or the building commissioner, but, go into it eyes wide open. So, I mean, we can continue looking at this. I don't know if anyone's putting up a fence, here's the weather, days get shorter, the weather gets colder. I'm sure it's possible, but I don't think pools are going in or decks are getting built, right?
Well, and on that stuff right now, I guess the only issue would be them knowing that it may have to come down, but like a deck or a pool won't go up anyways, because it won't be able to be allowed to be in that easement.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I mean, in all honesty, if I can try and research state code and see if I can find anything in there that specifically states the easement.
I'll look
Did
too.
you said you saw it somewhere?
I just assumed that it would be in the state code, because again, it's one of those things that you assume that it'll know, so I had to come from somewhere, so.
Because, and if that's the case, then maybe we'd want to even mirror the language of the state code, just so that we have it, but
Yeah,
and if not, maybe it's as simple as adding in that section and. And if everybody else is good with that, then we'll just move that into the next month, but at the same time, hopefully be able to. Make a decision on the direction, so that we can go ahead and get an ordinance drafted starting at the next meeting.
Yeah,
Okay.
either you find something, or if you just wanna send me an email and say, draft something up for us to kick around, and, we can discuss it, look at it, whatever, and then set public hearings. Later on, it doesn't have to be a rush thing next month, but.
Right.
Whatever.
And then. Yeah. Because the other thing in this same thing was, without getting too far off track, was the accessory building corrections that we had talked about, which now seems like forever ago. Because we never addressed the duplication in the town code, if I'm thinking about this correctly, right?
I don't think we did.
Okay. I'll try to have that all together for the next meeting, because I know that I know that Sarah had sent kind of a draft of what we needed to correct. And I'll look back through my email and then make sure maybe send that back out to everybody so that everybody has a chance to look at it. And just for so you know what's going on, we made a bunch of changes, and right now there's 2 sections in chapter 15, I think it's 15-13-6 and 15-13-30, which both talk about detached accessory buildings. And one of them was actually 15-13-6 is also shipping containers. So it's like there's a duplication, and the accessory buildings in 15-13-6 are supposed to go away.
Yeah.
But we passed one ordinance and then another, and it like superseded itself. It was an order issue that we had. Yeah, so Corinne's sitting there like, I have no idea what this is supposed to be, but I have to go by the most recent ordinance, and that's where we ran into a problem with it. But I think if we address that all together, it makes sense then. Alright. And new business, review of bonds, maintenance guarantees, letters of credit. The only thing I really see that, without pushing it off too far, would be Babcock Second Subdivision Phase 2. There's a maintenance bond in place for $2,082. I don't know what that's all for, but the bond expires January 4th. So I don't know if we need to. If we have to inspect that, I would assume it'd probably be better to start looking at this stuff now to see if anything needs to be done as opposed to waiting until there's snow on the ground. I don't know if that's for asphalt. Because that's just for that lot 1 and 2. So there was that might just be for the private drive. That's a shared driveway between lots 1 and 2. I mean, it might be something something totally different. I don't know, but that's.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with just checking now to see where things are at.
Yeah, because if we wait till next meeting, then it's gonna be like, we're gonna be pushing it to get everything done. So,
Shemmer, not.
yeah, make contact and see if they can go out there and see if there's anything that needs to be done in reference to that. That way, in November's meeting, worst case scenario, if we haven't already, then we can make contact with. I think at the same time, I think we're gonna reach out to them, maybe notify Patrick Leahy as well, like right off the bat, instead of waiting until November. Just that we're gonna check and make sure everything's wrapped up.
Well, especially because it expires on 1/4/23.
Yeah, I don't know if we have a meeting in January before then.
The first Monday is January 2nd, which is gonna be the holiday, so if you push that back a week, like you.
Yeah, we're not gonna have a meeting in January, so we just
Well,
have,
you would, but it would be January 9th.
right,
So you've got, November 7th and December 5th to try to button that up.
yeah. Yeah, so we need to notify them sooner than later. Good to the order and any other business? The other thing on announcements, our November 7th meeting will be at the fire department in their training / meeting room due to the election. If anyone has any issues or hasn't been there, just let us know. Guide you the way.
Don't forget to come to the Fall Fest on Saturday. That's
Yes.
park, it'll be a good time, good food, good music, beer garden, kids games, trunk or treat. We're still looking for trunks, if anyone wants to decorate their trunk and hand out candy. I think we're at 10, that's pretty low compared to where we usually are. So if anyone's interested, let me know, let Kim know. See you there.
I will entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
I have a motion, do I have a second? Second. Roll call, Michelle.
Bernie Poprad,
Yes.
Roseanne Bozak,
Yes.
Travis Dunlap, Aaron Addick,
Yes.
Jeremy McCart.
Yes. 34 minutes.